What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. My name's Kyle. In this video, it's April 30th. We just got done with the NFL draft yesterday. So this video, I'm basically just going to go over all the major landing spots that we need to know for fantasy football and your dynasty drafts coming up. That's the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, and the tight end. Now, I know a lot of people are going to probably say that this is not the best draft class we've had in a while. So dynasty drafts might be a little bit slimmer than usual. But again, what we're going to do in this video, I'm just going to go over all the major landing spots. And on the screen share here, I'm going to kind of zoom in. On the left, I just have everything filtered by round, but we're going to kind of just do this position by position. So let me just kind of zoom in, and we'll start with the quarterbacks here. And for your, it depends on if you're, super flex or if you're in just a standard 1 QB league. But there are some quarterbacks that we're going to be interested in. And of course, the first quarterback taken in the draft here was Bryce Young by the Carolina Panthers. Out of Alabama, former Heisman winner. You love, I love Bryce Young. I think Carolina's a good spot for him long term. Not super excited about his rookie season though. They did draft him a receiver in the second round, which is nice. They have Adam Thielen there, DJ Chark, who's dinged up with an ankle injury, and Terrace Marshall Jr. They also have Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst. So there's enough veteran leadership around him where I think he can be decent his first year. But either way, Bryce Young probably gonna be the first or second quarterback taken in your rookie drafts. And for redraft, he might be a low end QB2. Moving on to number 2, CJ Stroud out of Ohio State here. Didn't know what Houston was gonna do with that pick. I'm glad they did take CJ Stroud. I think it was the correct move. Not a lot of talent on offense in Houston. They're more of a defensive run the ball team here. Of course, I love Dameon Pierce, and they got the Devin Singletary from Buffalo there. So they're going to run the ball with him. The receiving room needs a little bit of help. They did draft some receivers here. But I think I'm struggling with CJ Stroud. I think between Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, he's probably my number 3 quarterback in the rankings. And if you're looking for rankings, I did put a link in the description below with just my first thought rankings. I'm going to put up another video maybe tomorrow going over my dynasty rankings. But CJ Stroud, long-term good fit. They do need some help though at the wide receiver position. They did sign Dalton Schultz, which might be a nice security blanket for Stroud right away this year. And then we get to Anthony Richardson, the most interesting quarterback, I think, in this draft in terms of his athleticism and what he can do with his legs. He's got a big arm. If you kind of somehow took Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and put them into a blender, you got Jalen Hurts' body with Lamar Jackson's athleticism. So I love this for the Colts. I think this actually makes the Colts not so far behind the Jaguars for the AFC South. So it's an interesting spot. The Colts do have Jonathan Taylor. They added another running back in the draft. They got some wide receivers and Michael Pittman Jr. They drafted Josh Downs. And, of course, they got a handful of tight ends there. So I think it's going to be a really fun offense. You got Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. Should be a lot of fun. And who knows what his ceiling is with his legs. He could rush for 1,000 yards. He could, put up a lot of touchdowns. So I like Anthony Richardson a lot, and I don't think it's crazy to say that he could be the number 1 quarterback from this draft class. And then we had the break. Those are the 3 first-round quarterbacks. Will Levis, the only quarterback to go in the second round here from Kentucky. He slid kind of far. Tennessee, they got Ryan Tannehill there. I think Tannehill's probably got the job for this year as long as they're competitive. Maybe we see Will Levis start, the final 4 or 5 games at the end of the year. We'll see what happens. I think long-term, you got to be patient with him. 2024 might be his year where he's the starter, but we shall see. I think he's a project guy that you can put on your dynasty rosters and see what happens. Not overly in love with him, but who knows? He might be the starter come next season. And then you got Hendon Hooker, who's probably going to be a redshirt kind of year for him in Detroit. He's going to just soak up as much as he can from Jared Goff in that offense. He's another guy you got to be patient with. I think 2024. 2025, that's probably when we could see Hendon Hooker take the field. But Jared Goff played so well last year. I don't know if this is a dynasty asset that I need on my roster unless it gets really late in your dynasty draft. And then after this, guys, really, after these 5, the rest are just backups. I'm not super in love with the rest of these quarterbacks here. You have Jake Haener here, back up Derek Carr. Stetson Bennett, nice pickup for Matt Stafford's backup in the Rams system here. Aiden O'Connell with the Raiders. He's going to compete for, number 2 duties. Don't really see a much ceiling with any of these guys here. They're all taken in the 4th round, which is decent draft capital. But again, these guys are just more like career backups. If they ever do get into the starting lineup, it's going to be because of injury or something. It's not going to be because of talent. And then round 5, you got 4 more quarterbacks: Clayton Tune, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Sean Clifford, and Jaron Hall. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's probably the most interesting just because he's really athletic, and they put him in Cleveland. If anything happens to Watson, he can be kind of fun with his legs. Clayton Tune in Arizona, going to compete, to be the backup behind Kyler Murray. Sean Clifford, the Packers really needed a quarterback here. I'm not sure this is my favorite pick for them. But they get a 4-year starter at Penn State, and he made Will Levis transfer to Kentucky. Will Levis couldn't beat out Sean Clifford, so something to keep an eye on there as the Packers backup. Jaron Hall in Minnesota, that we knew they wanted a quarterback, so they get their potential number 2. And then Philadelphia continues to take quarterbacks here: Tanner McKee out of Stanford, and then round 7, Max Duggan out of TCU. Going to compete for the Chargers backup. So overall, not a super exciting quarterback class. I think anything after Hendon Hooker is probably off my board. But man, you got Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Those are probably my top 3 for fantasy football right away. And then you got to be patient with Levis and Hendon Hooker. But that's the quarterbacks. Let's move on to one of the more exciting positions here in the running back room. And of course, you got Bijan Robinson, first running back taken off the board here by Atlanta at 8th overall. It's really rare to see a first-round running back, especially a top 10 running back. Everyone's going to be taking Bijan Robinson as their 101. I think Superflex, you can maybe make an argument for some of the quarterbacks, but I think Bijan with Atlanta, he's going to get the ball probably 300 plus times this year. He's going to be a beast from day one. So 4-year outlook for Bijan Robinson is as high as any running back. He's going to just dominate touches. Atlanta loves to run the football. It's a weak NFC South conference, so you're going to want to get, if you have the 101, you probably need to take Bijan Robinson. Where it gets interesting is what the Lions did at 12 overall, which everyone was kind of shocked at it. We all had, late first round grades on Jahmyr Gibbs, but they go out and get him at 12. They also traded away DeAndre Swift to kind of clear the running back room. So it's just going to be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I think if Montgomery in that Jamal Williams role, or he's probably going to lead the team in carries, but man, they want to throw the ball to Gibbs. You do not take a running back 12th overall and don't have designs for him. And we know the Lions and Jared Goff, they love to kind of dink and dunk and maneuver their way down the field with their running back. So Gibbs has legit 70, 80 catch potential right away his rookie season. He's probably going to end up being a running back 2 right away this year. So Gibbs, I mean, if you're in a super flex league, you're not going to get Bijan Robinson if you don't have the number 1 pick. But Gibbs, man, if you don't need a quarterback, take Gibbs somewhere, 4th, 5th, 6th overall. And especially if it's a PPR league, Jahmyr Gibbs, one of my favorite. I didn't love the pick in terms of real NFL draft capital. That's too much for a running back, but for fantasy football, that's as much. That's all I needed to see. 12th overall, they want him. They're going to use him. Strong PPR player. And then after this, the running backs are weird, man. You got Zach Charbonnet here for UCLA. He's going to Seattle to be the backup for Kenneth Walker. So something that's really strange there. He's a guy that I really liked coming in. I thought he was the number 3 running back, but I hate the landing spot. I think it's kind of messy. It's going to take some of the shine off of Kenneth Walker. And now Charbonnet, we expected him to maybe go somewhere where he could compete for starting running back job, but not here. He's not going to be the leading ball carrier. He might be the 3rd down back right away. But Charbonnet, you got to be patient with him. Kenneth Walker, he's going to be the guy. And if anything happens to Walker, Charbonnet will be a reward for you. But I think at this point, Charbonnet probably is a 2nd round pick in your dynasty drafts and a guy that you're going to be happy to have on your roster. But you have to be patient with him. Now, the round 3 running backs, you got some interesting guys here. Kendre Miller out of TCU going to New Orleans. I like that a lot. You have Jamal Williams there, of course, from free agency, and Alvin Kamara, who is probably facing some kind of suspension. So Kendre Miller might be the team's passing down back right away this year. And who knows? I mean, long term, I think Kamara is like 27, Jamal Williams maybe 27, 28 in that same range. Kendre Miller could be the guy in a year or two. So I think as round 3 draft capital, I'm taking Kendre Miller over Zach Charbonnet, a guy that I think has some usefulness in their offense right away. And I can see him just kind of blowing away his ADP. Tajay Spears, interesting guy, came out the other night that he doesn't have an ACL in one of his knees. So that's a little concerning, but he's going to be the pass catching back for Tennessee. And as Derrick Henry gets older, we maybe have like 1 or 2 years left of prime Derrick Henry. So Tajay Spears, his long-term outlook, he could be, the main guy there. They still have Hassan Haskins, which I think muddies it. But Tajay Spears, I was hoping for a better landing spot. Don't love it in Tennessee. They don't really throw the ball to the running back very much. So he's probably a late second round pick for me. The one guy that I like a lot here is Devin Achane from Texas A&M going to Miami. He's really fast. We know Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins value speed, and the only two running backs ahead of him right now on the roster are Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, two veteran backs. So they're going to mix Achane in this year. Who knows, maybe by 2024 we have a starter in Devin Achane. So he excites me, I think, even more than Kendra Miller and Charbonnet. So I might put Devin Achane as my RB3 in my rankings. And then you have Tank Bigsby here for Jacksonville. He's going to compete to be the backup behind Travis Etienne. He's a big guy. He's kind of a tank. That's why his name is Tank. And he could be, a goal line runner, a first and second down runner. He kind of, the way he can be used is similar to like a Damian Harris, like he was in the New England system. He's just a big back that can be trusted in short yardage situations, and he can grind down teams in the third and fourth quarter. I like him. Not sure I need him on my dynasty team. The one guy that I think in the fourth, there's only one running back taken in the fourth round, and I like it a lot. Rashawn Johnson. He was actually one of my favorite running backs in this class just because he's big, fast, and he can catch and run, kind of do it all. And going to Chicago, he's got Khalil Herbert and Deonta Foreman ahead of him. So it's kind of weird for this year where he's going to fit into this offense. But I think by 2024, he could be the lead guy. He's really talented. And I can't remember what the deal was, if it's a 1 or 2 year deal for Foreman. I think Khalil Herbert's rookie deal is going to expire soon. So if all these guys here, after Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, you're looking at Charbonnet, Miller, Spears, Achane, Bigsby, and Rashawn Johnson. I think it's Achane and Rashawn Johnson that excite me the most. So we'll kind of hash that out in some of the ranking videos. But I think Rashawn Johnson to the Bears was a fantastic pick. We have 4 running backs taken in the 5th round here. Israel Abanikanda from Pittsburgh going to the Jets. Chase Brown from Illinois going to the Bengals. Eric Gray, Oklahoma, going to the Giants. And then Evan Hall from Northwestern going to the Colts. And these guys are all good players. They're all going to be useful. They all can be the number 2 running back in their system. With Breece Hall and the Jets, we don't know if he's going to be ready to go week 1 right away. So Israel is a guy that could get some early work and some time in September. I think he's better than Michael Carter and some of the other running backs they got there. So I would peg him as the backup to Breece Hall. With Chase Brown in Cincinnati, we know they let go of Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon. Getting older, not as elusive. He's still a good pass catcher and everything here, but he kind of lost a step last year. Chase Brown's a guy that could come in and compete for the number 2 duties, and I'm not sure about his pass protection. I need to figure that out, but he could be a passing down back for them. And then the Giants, of course, they just needed a backup behind Saquon, and Eric Gray is really dependable. So I like that. Basically, if you have Saquon Barkley, you should put Eric Gray on your board. He can be, security, deposit there. And then Evan Hall, he's going to compete for passing down duties, I believe, in Indianapolis. They have Zach Moss there and a couple other guys. I think Darrington Evans is there. But Evan Hall's a much better pass catcher than either of those two guys. And we know that, again, this is the new Colts, the old Colts regime. They did have Naheem Hines. They had room for a passing down back with Jonathan Taylor. So maybe Evan Hall is kind of that third down back right now. Of all he's really interesting in the 5th round. I think I could see him being a backup on my dynasty bench. 6th round here, not super excited about this, but Chris Rodriguez to Kentucky, or from Kentucky going to the Commanders. Of course, they got Brian Robinson, they got Antonio Gibson. Maybe Chris Rodriguez can push Gibson out the door. I think Gibson's a free agent after this season, so he might be competing for number 2 duties with Gibson this season and maybe be the guy next year. Dallas getting the Deuce Vaughn call, Kansas State. Tony Pollard's hurt. We might not see a healthy Tony Pollard right away to start the year. So you could see a little bit of a committee to start the year. They did sign Ronald Jones, which I don't think is scaring anybody. But Deuce Vaughn, really interesting guy. He's small. He kind of reminds me of Tony Pollard if you watch him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he sees the field as a rookie and a compliment to Tony Pollard over Ronald Jones. And then Zach Evans, he's a really interesting guy here going to the Rams. He's only got, Cam Akers ahead of him. They don't really have a good depth chart at the running back room. But this is a guy that's he can kind of do everything really well. He's not great or elite at anything, but I think once training camp comes around, we might be seeing a lot of Zach Evans propaganda pumping him up, and he could compete for snaps and touches away from Cam Akers. So he's one to definitely watch. I think he's a sleeper in the 6th round here, and then some seventh round running backs. You got Dwayne McBride to the Vikings. We know the Vikings are interested in moving Dalvin Cook. They did sign Alexander Madison, but McBride's going to come in and be the number 3, could be the number 2 if they do move Dalvin Cook. The Packers take a running back here, Lou Nichols out of Central Michigan. I like him. We don't know the long-term contract situations for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Nichols he could compete for their number 3 job this year. And he could be in for, an RB2, RB3 role with them in 2024. And then the Seahawks are at it again, taking another running back, Kenny McIntosh from Georgia. I'm not sure he's on my list, especially after drafting Kenneth Walker last year and Charbonnet this year. So running backs are a little bit of a mess. If you can't get Bijan or Gibbs, you're not going to get a guy that's going to be the guy this year. So a little bit of a frustration from the running back department this season. But let's move to the wide receivers where we have a lot of depth. And the Seahawks were at it again, man, starting with Jackson Smith-Njigba, Ohio State. Didn't really think about him going to the Seahawks at any point during my process here, but it makes sense. You have an aging Tyler Lockett. I think he's 30, 31 now. And this could be his future replacement here. He's going to slide in as the number 3 receiver. I don't expect him to have a super exciting rookie season, but maybe 2024 he could be their number 1, number 2 receiver in terms of receptions alongside DK Metcalf. So I like Smith-Njigba. He's probably still my number 1 wide receiver. He was going into the draft. He's an excellent slot receiver here. So I'm more excited about Geno Smith in 2023 than I am about Smith-Njigba. But who knows? Maybe 2024, he's a guy that can lead the team in receptions, and we can go from there. The Chargers take Quentin Johnston from TCU. Interesting fit here. He's a big guy. He's similar size to Mike Williams. They play differently, though, but now you're looking at a trio of Johnston, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen, who might be on the outs in a year or two. So Johnston, what you like about him is 1st-round draft capital. You love that. He's tied to Justin Herbert, though. I think that's what's important. There's a chance Quentin Johnston can be Justin Herbert's future wide receiver 1. So that alone really excites me. I know a lot of people were indifferent on him. They didn't think he could separate. They poked holes in him quite a bit. And at one point, I think like in March and February, like he was the wide receiver 1, but he kind of lost some ground. So he's extremely interesting. We love the fit. We love that Chargers passing offense. Zay Flowers going to Baltimore. Very similar to like a Marquise Brown kind of landing spot. I think Zay Flowers, maybe not as good of a vertical stretcher as Marquise Brown is, but Zay Flowers can do everything else. He's probably going to be a guy that I'm excited to get in the middle to late 1st round of dynasty drafts. Now, you do have a couple concerning things. It's the Ravens, not a high passing volume offense. You have Mark Andrews there. They did sign Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman's there, but I think Zay Flowers, I mean, he can be the guy that, I think Mark Andrews is going to be he's going to continue to be their, receiver 1. But Zay Flowers could come in and be a guy that catches 60, 70 balls right away. And then Jordan Addison, probably I was lower on him just because of his size and some of his testing metrics. I didn't love it. But the fit in Minnesota, man, they needed a number 2 wide receiver. And behind Justin Jefferson and I guess TJ Hawkinson, you're probably going to see Addison come in at number 3 for targets and receptions this year. This could be a really, really nice piece. The one pump for caution, though, is what they're going to do at quarterback after Kirk Cousins. I could see some turmoil there happening, but I like Addison a lot. I think of Smith-Njigba, Johnston, and Flowers. Addison's got the best rookie outlook, to compete for like a wide receiver 3 spot in our rosters. A handful of receivers taken in the 2nd round here. Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss going to Carolina. Could be their number 1 wide receiver right away. They only have Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, and Terrace Marshall Jr., so there's not a lot in his way. He's an exciting, big, fast receiver. He drew comparisons to A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. Does have some concentration drops issues at some times here, but super huge, fast, athletic freak. I liked Mingo a lot. Didn't expect him to be wide receiver 5, but man, 39th overall. The Panthers get Bryce Young, a potential wide receiver 1. And then Packers go get Jaden Reed from Michigan State. This is a guy that I think has like shades of like Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs to his route running in his game, but he's not super fast, but he is elusive. He is not afraid of contact. He likes to he's really well rounded as a wide receiver. So a bit of a surprise that the Packers took him. He doesn't usually line up with their metrics that they take for wide receiver. So Jayden Reed, probably an early second round pick in dynasty leagues. He could be the number 2 wide receiver there in Green Bay behind Christian Watson, and who knows, maybe he ends up catching more balls than Watson. Rashee Rice, not one of my favorite prospects. Kansas City, of course, we're taking him for that second round draft capital in the landing spot. So I do like the landing spot, but I don't really love the player. He's probably going to be their number 3, number 4 wide receiver this year. So I don't see a lot of excitement for dynasty, at least for the short term. And then Marvin Mims going to Denver, Oklahoma. Mims is one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft class. They do have 3 receivers ahead of him, but they've been rumored to be shopping Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. So if one of those guys gets moved, Mims is going to probably move up my board. And then we got a huge list of wide receivers in round 3. Tank Dell, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Josh Downs, Michael Wilson, Trey Tucker. I think Tank Dell to Houston, really good player. He's really small, but he's really good. He was ultra productive in college at Houston. He could compete for Houston's number 1 wide receiver this year. They only have what they got. I think Robert Woods is there. You've got John Mechie coming back from his illness. That's going to be really good. And then I'm trying to remember. I think it's Nico Collins. So they don't have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. So Tank Dell might be one of those late second round receivers you can get in your dynasty drafts that ends up being really good. Jalen Hyatt for the Giants. We like it. He's a deep threat guy. I don't really love the deep ball game of Daniel Jones, but Hyatt's a guy that could be kind of fun in that offense. Cedric Tillman, don't love the landing spot. He's going to be their number 4 receiver. Josh Downs, though, he's going to be their number 3 receiver in Indy paired with Anthony Richardson. They have Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce. We don't know if Michael Pittman's going to come back with a contract. So Josh Downs has some hidden upside there if Pittman goes away in a year or two. But I can't believe Josh Downs fell this far. I had him pegged as like, early second round pick. And then Michael Wilson, a really good player here for Stanford, going to Arizona. Cardinals need wide receiver help, long term. When DeAndre Hopkins is out of the picture, they really only have Marquise Brown. So Wilson could end up being a number 2 receiver there. The Raiders take Trey Tucker from Cincinnati. I don't love it. They do have a lot of slot receivers there. They have Hunter Renfrow. They have Jacoby Myers, and of course Devontae Adams. So Tucker kind of maybe competes for their 4th or 5th receiver this year. Some 5th round or some 4th round receivers. Darius Davis going to the Chargers, so they double dip in TCU, and then Charlie Jones going to Cincinnati. Tyler Scott to Chicago. Charlie Jones is the one to keep an eye on. The Bengals do not have a good depth chart after their top 3 receivers, so Jones is going to slot in as their number 4. He could compete with Tyler Boyd for some reps this year. Who knows? But potentially Charlie Jones ends up finding himself as the wide receiver 3 in Cincinnati. That's a sleeper for me. The 5th round wide receivers, you have Justin Shorter from Florida, Dontavian Wicks from Virginia, and Puka Nacua from BYU. The one that I'm excited about is Justin Shorter. He's physically a freak. He's really strong, really big, really fast. Has some issues with his hands, but Buffalo essentially, that's a fantastic landing spot. I do think he's going to be probably their number 5 receiver this year, though, so he's going to require some patience. Dontavian Wicks, though, he's got a lot of potential in that Packers offense. They did draft a handful of receivers. You have Christian Watson there. You have Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and then Dontavian Wicks is going to be their number 4. But he's a big body for them. They don't really have a type like him, so he could be interesting. Rams, Puka Nacua. They have an interesting depth chart. I'm not sure I'm super excited to grab him on my team. And then we got this 6th round jumble here. Parker Washington, Keyshawn Butte, Trey Palmer, A.T. Perry, Elijah Higgins, Xavier Hutchinson, Andre Iosovas, and then Demario Douglas. In terms of dynasty, I really don't like to grab wide receivers after the 3rd or 4th round. So these guys are more like projects to me. Probably don't need to, go really high in your dynasty drafts here. These guys are all probably late 3rd, 4th round picks. The one to keep an eye on for me is Keyshawn Booty, because he's super talented. He's just got character concerns, and he could be a guy that either he can go either one way. He could come against everything and really perform well for the Patriots and be a guy that they depend on next year. or he could go really south and he could be, hard to coach kind of thing. But otherwise, I don't love any of these fits really. Andre Iosivas is an interesting guy. He's really athletic. He's going to compete, with Cincinnati and Charlie Jones to be the number 4, number 5. But otherwise, I think I'm staying away from this group here. And then the seventh round wide receivers, you have Antoine Green to the Lions, Colton Dowell to the Titans. They need receivers, so we'll see about him. Jalen Brooks, the Cowboys, Ronnie Bell to San Francisco. I like that fit for San Francisco, not for Dynasty though. And then Grant Dubose to Green Bay. So Green Bay with 3 wide receivers is a really interesting one. But again, for me, stay focused on these top 3-round wide receivers. If you need to grab some of these guys late, I like Charlie Jones. I like Dontavian Wicks. And maybe keep an eye on like a guy like A.T. Perry or something like that. But either way, top 3 rounds for the wide receiver position. And then the tight ends. A ton of tight ends this year, starting off with Dalton Kincaid to the Buffalo Bills. Dawson Knox is there, but he's more of a traditional blocking inline kind of tight end. Dalton Kincaid's more of a glorified slot receiver, so I think they're going to see a lot of mismatches for him. He's going to be lined up, standing up, not so much of his hand in the dirt. Basically drafted a slot receiver here in Dalton Kincaid, and he's going to be like a late first, early second round pick. I think if you need the tight end spot, Kincaid's probably the future of the position here, and you're tying yourself to Josh Allen. So go get Dalton Kincaid. And then my number 2 tight end is going to be Sam Laporta. The Lions traded away TJ Hawkinson last year. Laporta is going to step in and be their receiving weapon right away from day one. And of course, we know Jared Goff loves to kind of dink and dunk, and Laporta has, outside of Kincaid, I think he's got the second highest potential here. So those are my top 2 tight ends. Do not love the fit for Michael Mayer. Going to Las Vegas, they did sign Austin Hooper and a couple other guys, so he might be a project guy that they bring along slowly. Just don't have a lot of trust in general in that Raiders offense and coaching staff. Excuse me. Packers drafting Luke Musgrave's a really interesting one. They did double dip at tight end, but he's going to be the the guy that gets the majority of opportunity here. And Jordan Love, you go back and watch his Utah State stuff. He was really good with tight ends. So this, I mean, I'm probably going to rank Musgrave as my number 3 tight end here. Luke Shoemaker to Dallas. I don't really quite understand it. I think he was more of a day 3 guy here. Kind of shocked to see him go 58th overall. So I'm bypassing him. I'm going to bypass Bretton Strange. I think these were 2 bad picks. Tucker Kraft, would have liked to see him go somewhere where a tight end wasn't already drafted, but he's really, he's big, he's fast, he's strong. He can do all these things really well, but he's kind of blocked right now by Luke Musgrave. But definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Maybe he outperforms Musgrave in camp. Darnell Washington fell kind of far. He's blocked by Pat Freiermuth. Don't know if I need to draft him. Cameron Latu here from Alabama going to the 49ers. Of course, blocked by George Kittle. Don't know if I need to draft that. Keep an eye on Josh Wiley from Cincinnati. Indianapolis drafting another tight end. Payne Durham going to Tampa Bay. Davis Allen going to the Rams. Zach Kuntz going to the Jets is interesting. And of course, he scored the perfect 10.0 on the RAS scale. The only he's since they've been doing those relative athletic scores, he's the number 1 tight end ever tested. So super athletic, super raw though. Needs some help, just getting experience at the position. But overall, the tight ends, I think you want Kincaid, Laporta, Musgrave. After that, it'd be Meyer for my 4. And then after that, it kind of drops off fast. But those are the tight ends, and those are the landing spots here. So it's not super deep. Again, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the program, but either way, my philosophy is you want to be drafting guys that were taken, of course, in the 1st round, 2nd round, and 3rd round. After that, I would kind of default back to the 2nd and 3rd round players if there's any of those guys left. So that's it. Check out the link in the description if you want to check out my rankings. Again, I'm going to update those. I'll probably do a video on that tomorrow. But either way, just glad the NFL draft came and is through. We have rookie landing spots and a lot of exciting dynasty happening. So that's it for me, though. Thank you guys for your time. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, we'll see you in a future video. Peace.